It's the middle of winter, 20,000 years ago in Ice Age Europe. There is no house, no heater, no thick down jacket, no grocery store full of food, no thermostat you can nudge up 2 degrees. Outside, the temperature's well below freezing, cold enough to kill an unprotected human in hours. The wind comes off a wall of glaciers. And yet somehow, your ancestors didn't just cling to survival in this frozen world, they spread across it. They thrived in it. The question is how? How did a fragile, hairless, tropical ape conquer the Ice Age? The answer is one of the greatest survival stories ever told, and it comes down to a handful of astonishing inventions. Here's the thing you have to understand first. Humans have no business being in the cold. We evolved in the warmth of Africa. We have no fur to speak of, no thick blubber like a seal, no built-in coat like a wolf. Biologically, we are tropical animals. By all rights, an Ice Age winter should have been a death sentence. So everything our ancestors used to survive it, they had to invent. And the first and most important invention was fire. Control of fire changed everything. It wasn't just warmth, though that alone was life-saving. Fire gave light in the long, dark months. It cooked food to unlock more calories, and it created a defensible circle of safety at night. Ice Age humans built hearths inside their shelters and positioned them so the heat reflected off the rock walls, turning a freezing cave into something almost livable. Fire was the campfire at the center of survival, the thing everything else huddled around. And getting that fire wasn't easy. There were no matches and no lighters. Our ancestors had to create fire from scratch, either by rubbing wood together fast enough to coax out a glowing ember, or by striking a stone like flint against iron pyrite to throw a spark into a nest of dry tinder. It took skill, patience, and bone-dry materials, all of which were precious in a frozen world. Keeping a fire alive through a long winter night was a job in itself, tended in shifts, because letting it go out could mean letting everyone freeze. And fire did far more than warm them. Its light and heat held back the predators that prowled the endless Ice Age darkness. So the glow at the mouth of the cave was, quite literally, the line between the living and the cold. But fire keeps you warm only when you're next to it. To actually move through a frozen landscape, you needed to carry warmth on your body. You needed clothing. And this is where our ancestors made a leap that, honestly, doesn't get nearly enough credit. Anyone can drape an animal skin over their shoulders, but a loose skin lets wind and cold pour in through every gap. The real breakthrough was learning to sew. Around 40,000 years ago, humans invented the eyed sewing needle, carved from bone. And this humble little tool was a survival superweapon. With a needle, you could stitch skins together into tailored, fitted, layered clothing. Ice Age tailors became genuinely sophisticated. They carefully chose different animals for different jobs: reindeer, Arctic fox, hare, even birds like the ptarmigan, and sewed 3 or 4 layers together. A soft, moisture-wicking layer against the skin, insulating fur in the middle, and a tough, wind-blocking, water-resistant hide on the outside. They were, in effect, building high-performance winter gear out of the animals around them. That fitted sewn clothing is a huge part of why humans could push north into lands that would have killed a naked ape in an afternoon. Then, there was shelter. Whenever they could, Ice Age humans used caves and rock overhangs, which blocked the wind and held on to heat. But the frozen plains where the big game lived often had no caves at all. So they built their own, and what they built is astonishing. In places like the Ukrainian plains, archaeologists have found huts constructed out of mammoth bones, dozens of them, huge tusks and skulls and ribs assembled into dome-shaped frames, and then covered with animal hides. They were building houses out of the very animals they hunted, And that points to the last piece: food. The Ice Age plains were roamed by enormous herds of megafauna, mammoths, bison, woolly rhinos, reindeer. These animals were walking supply depots. They gave meat and, critically, fat, which is pure, dense energy, exactly what a body burning calories to stay warm desperately needs. A mammoth provided food, hides for clothing and shelter, and bones for tools and building. And here's a clever twist: winter itself became a tool. The cold acted as a natural freezer. Our ancestors could store meat and bones for weeks in the frozen ground, letting the Ice Age preserve their food for them. The very thing trying to kill them also kept their dinner fresh. And they had to be clever about what they ate, because in the cold, not all food is equal. There's a deadly trap known as rabbit starvation. If you eat nothing but lean meat, like rabbit, with almost no fat, your body actually cannot survive on it, no matter how much you stuff yourself. In a frozen landscape, fat wasn't a luxury, it was the line between life and death, which is exactly why fatty animals and rich, greasy bone marrow were prized above almost everything else. And as for those mammoth bone houses, the scale is genuinely hard to believe. At one site called Mezhyrich, in what is now Ukraine, a single dwelling was built from the bones of around 150 mammoths, arranged into a dome that has survived for roughly 15,000 years. These weren't crude lean-tos thrown together in a panic. They were engineered homes built from the bodies of the largest animals on the continent. Now, we weren't the only humans out there in the cold. The Neanderthals were already there, and their bodies were actually built for it, stockier and more compact, with shorter limbs to conserve heat, a physical adaptation we never developed. But we had something that arguably mattered more: the needle, the layered coat, the toolkit, the ability to invent our way out of any problem. We didn't beat the cold with our bodies, we beat it with our minds. If you love the ingenious survival stories hiding in our deep past, subscribe, because I go deep on stuff like this every single week. So the next time you're cold and you reach for a coat without a moment's thought, hold it for a second and realize what you're holding. That coat is the direct descendant of a 40,000-year-old invention, one that let a warm weather ape with no fur walk into a world of ice and glaciers, and not only survive, but make it home. We were never built for winter. We outthought it. And every stitched, layered, fitted piece of clothing you own is a quiet monument to the ancestors who figured out how to carry summer with them into the coldest place on Earth.